Hello, everybody. My name's Eric Howerton with Doing Business in Bentonville, and it was my honor today to witness these wonderful panelists and moderator do a AI and retail media show live event here in Northwest Arkansas at the Acosta office, sponsored by Acosta, sponsored by the Bentonville Chamber of Commerce. And what we did was we just basically brought together leaders from the community, brands, brokers, selling partners, agencies, folks like that, to come in. And the fantastic thing about that is that the response was fantastic. We had a full crowd, and then we delivered a really important topic today. And we were led by Jessica Duquesne, who was our moderator. Thank you, Jessica, for doing that today. And then we had Eric McCourt with Google. Jessica, by the way, is with Hershey. Excuse me, Jessica. Sorry about that. Eric McCourt with Google. And we had Toby Wilsey with AdFury. And then we had Joe Ponce with HashQ. And Jessica, you really set it off great this morning. I just want to say that. Great job with the moderation. The questions were fantastic. Maybe you can kind of recap a little bit about some of the questions you've asked and why maybe you asked those questions.
Yes. First, I do want to say, what a great turnout.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with the amount of people that were there, and something that lets you get in the inside of people really want to talk about AI, right? So as soon as I had the opportunity to have that conversation, of course, we had a great panel of people that are very knowledgeable and that use it every day and they see what results there are, is that there is a need in this community, specifically in the CPG community, to have more in-depth information of how to use these tools and how they can create an impact in their organizations, right? So at first, I think that was very clear, which I love that we keep having those conversations and you have plan to keep bringing that along. But today was more focused about, AI in retail media, right? So retail media ecosystem, because I would think most people here focus on Walmart business and probably Sam's Club business, right? And so that retail media environment, especially because it's pushed out by Walmart, is so important to understand it and see how they're AI partners with that and how they can leverage. So how is AI in retail media? How are they used? How are they creating an impact and measurable results through AI? And I think that was a very important question that we asked. Another way is how AI is influencing your workflows internally, how the way you work with your teams. What is different? And then the last is kind of we were a little call to action, right? What should brands do in order to create an impact, and how can they win? Let's say in the next, we even said 90 days, we give them 90 days. I don't know, maybe they're going to do it right now.
Right.
I saw a lot of people taking notes, so that was very impactful. So those were, I think, the top big overarching topics that we had. And thank God we had these three over here that were really good at answering them and answer all the questions.
Well, thank you, Jessica. I really appreciated how it was staged out. And what was neat when you and I were first talking about doing this, you were like, Eric, why don't I, as a brand, ask the questions that brands would ask? I'm like, wow, that's genius. How did I never think about that? So thank you for making me smarter again, as always, Jessica. But it was fantastic because I think that the way that you position them, really thinking about the brands, and then I feel like that the brands came in, they got a lot of value. One thing too about Erica, whenever you were talking about what I didn't expect that I personally was going to get a lot out when I started hearing you talk about how Google has structured its ecosystem, with Gemini Enterprise, and I mean, and those are kind of some of these things we hear about, there's so much information coming out about tools and LLMs and everything, all this stuff that's going on, but you started kind of crystallize a little bit about what that means. And really what it means from a brand standpoint is, what are the customers, because everybody in the world's getting that, and they're going to have this experience with enterprise and all these different tools that they're using. I thought that was really valuable. I mean, can you go into that a little bit again, just talking about, from, if I'm a brand listening to this, what are customers, how are they using tools for shopping? What's that experience? Can you dive into that a little bit from what you know?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the thing that has been obvious to me in the space of AI is your most recent experience becomes your expectation. And so I think when you think about customers, they aren't doing it intentionally and thoughtfully, but they're just reacting to what's given to them. And so when you're on a customer service call and it's clunky and it feels like they don't know you, it's agitating because you can absolutely get on a call where someone knows your name, knows why you're probably calling, and then quickly gets to resolution. So your time is being saved. And I think that's what customers want. They want to be seen, they want to be known. And I think anybody who can create that experience, whether that's on their website, with their agent, if that's, with their customer service or with their associates in store, that's what customers desire. They want to be seen, they want to be known, and they want to be efficient. I mean, I am the efficiency queen. I want to get in and out, and I don't want to have to do extra steps because somebody isn't using the data that's available to them. Now, in full transparency, companies have a lot of work to do to serve up that data in a consumable way so that you're setting your frontline up for success, that they have that data in a very digestible format that they can speak intelligently into the customers. And that's the work, right? That's where I think that we really need to spend some time knowing our data, where our data lives, pulling the data sources together to deliver that expectation for customers.
Eric, what makes me excited is I've been, had White Spider before, and it was all about data and content, right? The catalog. I mean, we just relentlessly were pushing that, and it was more about SEO and the customer engagement experience. But the same truth still holds. Content's king, right? I mean, because basically we can say the machine has already consumed all the data that's really available in the world, but it wants new, better data. And I thought your analogy about calling in at the airline and I'm having this problem, this conversation, but if, can a brand, if they really focused in on that depth of their data, why their research and development does these things, what's their sustainability practices, what's really at the core of their messaging, just go deeper and deeper and deeper, providing that back to these agentic shopping experiences. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Absolutely. And I think that people want to connect with brands and they want to know their story. Way back in the day, Ben and Jerry's ice cream, you could go to the Northeast and you could tour where things originated. You then come to find out it's a public brand that owns, that bought them out, kind of takes some of the mystery away. But everybody wants to hear the story behind the brand. And so I think that as a company, as a brand leader, the more precise you can get about how you're differentiated, how you stick out, and how you can connect with your audience, people want to know that. They look at reality TV show. Everybody wants the dirt of what's going on in people's lives. If a brand approached their messaging that way, how are they revealing some of the backstory as to what brought them to this point, or how they've served their customers over time, how they've evolved their brand, how they've connected? All of that is just people being responded to and being in on the inside with a brand, being crisp about that story and finding a way to pass that through in your PDP page, show to the customer how they can land on your brand, how they can see and how you message and market to your customer. If there is a thread that is connected to that, that's pretty powerful.
Jess, I can't help but sit here and think if I was on, Walmart and I'm talking to the bot, right? Trying to find, I want the best chocolate, but and all these different attributes, but then I'm I want one that's made in the USA. What's the best, it just seems like that's perfect time for Hershey to be did you know, here's our founding story and we are this and that. And it seems like a lot of times those stories exist, but they're not upfront a lot of ways, right? It's not synchronized in. What are your thoughts on something like that?
It's interesting from the point of view of Hershey,
okay,
right? Because even if you don't know the backstory of Hershey, like Milton Hershey and how he wanted to make the best chocolate and affordable and also help back his community. It's almost I feel like the Waltons thinking we want to make this community grow, Bentonville, and that's why they have the headquarters. He wanted a headquarters over there in Pennsylvania, and he wanted to grow that community. That's why he wanted all the plants there, etc. And so if people don't know, it still has this nostalgia attached to it. So even if you don't know the whole story, Hershey's part of your parents' life, your grandparents' life,
right?
How, and they're connected to it from an emotional, sense. There's new chocolate brands, obviously,
right?
Which again, they have to do, especially in the US, they have to do a lot more, I guess, of that backstory. Why do I exist, right, as a brand? and some of them are influencers. So it's like, I am this person and people feel connected to that and therefore connected to the brand. Others is just a brand that comes like, who are you? Why are you in this space? Right. So from Hershey's perspective, I think that there is that advantage in the US. Now I work on global markets and we have to tell that story.
Interesting.
Overseas. There's no nostalgia connected to our brand. People don't understand what is it? What do you want? Like, so everything that you're saying, we have to optimize on a global scale.
Wow.
So people understand our brand. But hopefully, like the shameless pitch, the Hershey movie is coming November 2026.
Ooh, really?
We tell the whole story.
I love that.
Hershey, yes, it's coming out.
I can't wait to see it.
Yes. Yes.
Can we show it right now in this video?
Sneak preview.
I don't think the production house.
I thought this was the premiere of the Hershey movie. My bad.
I wish, yes.
I'm actually excited about that because I've always been this big fan of like American entrepreneurism history.
It's just such a wonderful.
It is. It really is. So when we had these questions that popped up at the event, and then you got Toby and Joel started talking. It started getting kind of deep and cool. But that's really cool. I think that like the question I have for you, Joel. I mean, your HashQ, just so we're clear, like it. I mean, we know Google, we know Hershey, like just like what you're just talking about, Jessica. We already know, right? It's got a nostalgia, but I mean, kind of smaller companies, founding startup companies, right? HashQ, it's in the gaming industry for the most part, right?
Think of us as a media innovation agency with specialty within gaming, helping unlock gaming as a retail channel and building intelligent systems to really take strategic planning process from weeks to days. We frankly started developing that as a way to learn more about our clients, their brands, and their customers, because that ultimately allows us to better serve them. That's been a really powerful unlock for us.
So like, for example, like you can help a brand advertise within gaming environments, which I mean, we all know is really, that's a blowing up space, right? It has been. I imagine that it's kind of like there's a lot of education, inspiration you have to give. Joel's like, yes.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I'm very tired.
That's the job. But when you think about it, like just look around, think about, friends, family, they're either spending time on their phones playing Candy Crush with friends. They're on their Xbox or PlayStation. They're on their Nintendo Switch. Toby and I had a good conversation about how, when I was at Nickelodeon, we used to talk about co-viewing, but now you think about this concept of co-playing. My nephew will call me and be like, hey, uncle, I want to play Lego Fortnite because there's a new Star Wars DLC. Let's go get the lightsaber. It's a family activity now.
It is.
And there's a lot of misconceptions. People think it's, kids are doing in his basement, and it's really multi-generational. So the really big questions are, it's not, are your customers spending time there? More often than not, the answer is yes, some more than others. It's more, how do you show up in a brand safe way? How do you do it in a way that aligns to your goals and objectives? And what's the best place to start? And then how do you scale from there?
And so I imagine AI is really helping. Is it starting to help accelerate or go deeper into these?
It's helping us gain a deeper understanding of any brand we work with to find the right way for them to show up in those environments. Because it's not just throw up an ad with whatever you want to say, your display ad in this space. You want to be contextually relevant to this.
Right.
And the deeper we understand the brands, the better we're able to do that.
So, for example, if you had like Hershey, not to call out Hershey's doing something like that, but if Hershey wanted to do it, you're looking at the environment of the gaming space along with you can almost get down to maybe an average of who the player is or what, any of those types of things, marry that together, create that promotion, that ad that's contextually relevant.
Exactly. So, in their case, like think about Halloween as a super important moment for them. That's their Super Bowl, right? Well, when you think about Roblox, for example, Halloween is kind of the Super Bowl of Roblox as well. People are often dressing up during that time. People are always changing outfits. Billions of dollars are spent in in-game wearable items. So what an interesting opportunity for you to create a moment where people can celebrate in-game and in real life.
I can really see that. Like if you can capture that, and you guys talked about that quite a bit. Like it's not just about, like, for example, in that environment, but where are people discovering or becoming exposed to a brand? I mean, if they buy a game wearable, Hershey shirt or cap or something like that for the character. That's what you're talking about, right?
100%.
Okay.
You can wear a whole, like a chocolate bar or Kisses outfit or a Reese's jacket.
We did that for Halloween.
We did that.
Yeah.
We
Really?
Yes.
That's super cool.
Yes.
So we absolutely did that, and we learned that the older the player, the more they want something to feel like it was something they could wear in real life. The older the player, the more they want it to be something over the top. And again, it's doing it in a brand safe way. So when we work with their team, it's identifying the places that were, predominantly 13 plus. That's super important for a brand like Hershey's and many others that have high sugar content, for example.
So I imagine that they experience that there, and then they take that. It's in their mind as they're out in store or online, or they get their next basket or whatever it might be, right? They have this now affinity towards what they were wearing. And
it's super important. We think about, there's psychology studies talking about the age of imprint. Like, how do you show up in a consumer's mindset before they start making decisions of the brand that they know and trust and are going to be a part of their day-to-day lives moving forward? The studies kind of vary, but like usually that's, in the 12 to 16 range. So how do you show up in that environment from an advertising perspective, 13 plus, and start getting them to think about your brand and your consideration set? Adidas, I think, has done a fantastic job of this in Roblox. They're outfitting the next generation of consumers. They literally have a virtual store of a mall of Adidas, and they're selling all these kicks and jerseys. And like all of a sudden you see all these Roblox avatars wearing Adidas gear everywhere. Like, that's really interesting, right? When you go to Fortnite, you can buy Adidas shoes, you can buy Nike shoes. They're outfitting their virtual characters, which people might see more than they see the real person in real life. So it's a bit of a bragging rights.
That's super cool. And so AI is allowing you to be, just expedites the speed at which how you match that relevance.
At the moment, we're using it a lot for strategy and planning and helping us do that infinitely faster and more thoughtfully. We do see a world where this is going to start allowing us to do more on the asset development side as well.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Toby, so on your side, AdFury.ai is who you're with. You're the chief media officer at the company. What are you doing? I know your experience is really specific in retail media. You did stuff with Walmart in the past and Amazon, many other retailers. How are you seeing, what are you doing at AdFury that's in that space, and how are you seeing that help and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So AdFury is, a purely agentic platform with proprietary IP that's allowed us to create essentially our own system of agents. And what that allows us to do is have personalization at scale. What we're trying to achieve is allowing brands to be able to create unique assets for each of their different targeting strategies and each of their different channels, so that realistically they can have a similar brand ethos around their entire marketing strategy. And they can be able to have similar creatives wherever they are appearing, whether it be social, retail, or marketing, but they can be able to scale that across that entire bevy of retailer gambit, as well as social channels, so that they can tell that same story, but uniquely adjust the creative, the context, the ad copy to the audience they're targeting within each. So they can tell the right story and bring the consumer through the journey while ensuring that they stay with consistent messaging, so that they do not confuse or remove the consumer from that funnel because they lose interest or lose trust. And on top of this, we found that brands really need help with their content as well. And so we were able to create generation tools to allow very, very rapid PDP content generation, so that they can customize their PDP content and constantly change it over. Because what happens with brands more and more, and what they're experiencing is ad fatigue, because ads exist so much. And the problem with historical advertising is that you use a singular creative for months at a time. And so that fatigue hits hard. And so you start to see a natural decline in performance of your ad as it runs. And by having this personalization tool and the concepts that we're developing at AdFury, you can actually have multitudes of different assets readily available and move through every time you start to see that ad fatigue, so that you can consistently keep your consumer engaged without losing that messaging.
Eric, it reminds me of like when you were talking about earlier, I asked the question there in the event. I'm sorry about that. No one was asking. I was literally waiting on the audience. Like Jessica asked at the end of the event, like, any more questions? They had a couple, and it went, nobody said anything. I'm like, oh, this is okay. I'm going to do one then. But we went into the kind of this deeper flow, right? Because we were talking mostly about tools, AI tools specific at the event. And I asked about the flows, the next level, like putting agents, stitching it together into a flow. And you made a really good, comment about that. But it's almost like I'm hearing just from these two companies, right? Like there's this flow that could happen. And I'm just trying to paint a picture for a brand. So like for brands to think, it's almost like, how do I use this company plus this one, and it can all kind of be, we're seeing a point where we can stitch it all together to where the entire campaigns now are becoming a systematic flow. When, I don't know, Jessica, maybe back in the, that was really difficult. That has been extremely difficult to do, right? But I could almost see a world as we go forward that if you have more AI native or AI infused partners, that we can connect these dots a lot faster and become super fast.
Yes. I mean, like it used to be a lot harder because I think there was a lot of fragmentation in ownership as well. You had, of course, your retail media agency, your brand media agency, then you had other suppliers and vendors and your creative agency, and everybody was doing their own thing. And I think that now things are working in a different way. And I see a lot of, let's say, places like, for example, Flywheel, where it used to be that are very connected on our creative side, right? So it's not just media planning, but they're thinking ahead on creative and how that's going to work. And that has been connected already with our brand planning. So it's like circulating that. And a lot of those are actually created by AI as well. So it has the same sets of approval. And so there's like a unique, but also very seamless journey for the consumer. They see the same in all platforms, in all ways of communicating, in all the planning in the store, everywhere. And so I think that right now it's flowing in a different way.
I almost want to, and Eric, I'd like to have everybody weigh on this, but Eric, and you and Jessica specifically, like, there's been some sort of like feeling like AI is kind of really accelerated, right? And I would think that brands, and part of our reason for having the event and the show is like, hopefully bridge the gap between AI and what brands have known to do and they're the best in the world at doing, specifically here in Northwest Arkansas. But it's been a little bit overwhelming, semi-intimidating, and because you don't know what tools, you don't really understand. There's all these new acronyms, LLM, which we did a great job today, by the way. You did say LLM, large language model. Yeah, well done, man. All these acronyms, all these things, all these new tools coming from Google, stuff like that, it can be a little bit challenging. And so it's almost like you don't want to mess with it. But when you just paint that picture a little bit, Jessica, it's actually really optimistic and encouraging, right? That where this new world that we're getting into is honestly starting to it's going to fix a lot of the historic pains that we've been facing. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And I think that if you take the stuff that people are doing that they don't get energy from, that they don't get joy from, let AI be that, So it's just really thinking through how what was so impossible to deliver against because the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. You just can't put that much time into all of those things to deliver maybe in the way you want to do it. But AI makes all of that possible. And so I think what definitely my encouragement to anyone is don't be afraid, be curious. I think that AI has some great capabilities and it's always evolving. And so nobody's an expert. That is the piece that we all just have to sit in.
That's actually really comforting hearing from you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, I learn on it daily and I get schooled all the time. Wow. And it's awesome. But I think that like don't feel like an imposter. Just jump in and try. And if you can do it in your personal context and that's more approachable, that's awesome. I mean, I think the accessibility, I hear all the time of like parents learning from these different moments of like, hey, I asked AI this and it was able to do that. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're talking about a generation that didn't even know computers, being able to jump in, ask questions and get answers, and they're being delighted by the technology. So start in any accessible way that you can to get more comfortable with it. And then as you get more comfortable, that context will continue to grow and you'll be able to realize this applies to my job. And then be smart about like what tools are accessible to you in your workplace. I think that's the one thing that I would just offer encouragement. There is a personal space and then there is a corporate space. Please protect your corporate data because it is so important that you honor that for your company and you're in a garden wall where that information is not getting outside of that space. In the personal context, be smart and be thoughtful because you're sharing that to the entire world and it's being used. And so all of that stuff is just the reality of AI, that we need to be thoughtful about who we're talking to and how we're talking to them. But in your corporate space, like, go for it. Your IT team has built this structure so that you can explore and learn. And all tools are not created equal. You're going to find things that you feel like are better at writing, and you're going to find things that are better at images. And there's no right answer. And every model that launches, there's going to be new capabilities. So it never stops. You're going to continue to have to keep leaning in, learning, growing, exploring, testing, doing in this whole journey, because the models are changing on the daily.
And they're going to continue to, right? And what I hear you saying is like, give yourself permission, have fun with it, get on the personal side. And what I love about this too, because I keep like, how do you start as a brand in this space, right? And the answer, like I'm starting to have revealed to me today by y'all's discussion, is do it personally and start using it personally, because a lot of that can transfer into the corporate side as it becomes available, depending on your tools, right? Because was it you? I don't know which one of you was today. You talked about the prompting, like going deep. I think it was you, Toby. Yeah. So going deeper with the prompt, it starts learning more about you. Well, that can transfer over when you start using the corporate side of things, or even if you're starting to work with, companies like a HashiCorp, right? That can, like, you can understand the depth because of your experience personally, like what this agentic or, Adfury, the agentic thing means and what it needs, right?
Yeah, and willing to push the platforms. I mean, a lot of people take the responses from these AI tools as face value, and like that's what you can get, that's what it can provide. But most of these tools can go deeper. You just need to prompt them to go deeper. I think Joel made a great comment today during the conversation that like you don't want to ask it 5 different things in a single prompt. It's going to get context overload and it's going to give you a terrible response. But if you ask it concurrently your questions, you can layer on what you're actually trying to achieve. And then now it has all this context from its history and it remembers that. So now the next time you have a conversation with it, it remembers all of this context and it's able to give you a much better response and go deeper into the areas that you care about. I think, going back to what Erica was saying, like, I feel so strongly about that people are so scared about looking stupid. Like it's scary. It's really scary in this world of AI where everyone's talking about it and it's so important. And every big retailer, every big brand is saying we're doing it. And, CES was all about it this year. It's all they talked about. And then you're someone who barely knows anything about it or only uses a few of the tools. A lot of people just either shy away from it or act like they know what's happening. And, oh yeah, I totally use that. But by doing that, they don't ask the questions to learn. You mentioned Notebook LM today. And I never used it. I knew it existed, but I had never used it. And like after the conversation, I was talking to Joel about it, and he was telling me what he uses it for, and I was like, all right, I'm going to test this thing out tonight. Because everything it does, I was doing it already, just in a base LM where it was taking me 2x as long as if I just used another tool already by Google, to do it for me. So it's all about just being willing to be curious and being willing to just show your vulnerabilities, because realistically, we can only get better if we're willing to show that we don't know everything. And those who act like they know everything or want to live in this bubble where they're like, I'll figure it out later on my own, are going to struggle, because this is a very hard thing to learn.
Or even waiting on somebody else to come in and teach them. Like,
Exactly.
That's what I think the big power statement is here, is like, folks, just, sign up for Google Enterprise for personal, right? Can you for Enterprise for personal?
I would say go to Gemini.
Okay.
And then you can choose to use the basic free version, or you can opt into the paid version. The paid version is going to then open up your ability to know you. And so that's where the power is. If you just do the free version of any of the platforms, to be clear, this is the same for ChatGPT. But if it's paid, then it saves and understands and learns you. And so, for example, we have short-term rentals in this area. And so it's like, hey, Erica, your Happy Trails business, this is something that would be relevant for you. Like, it knows me because of the ways that I've been using it, and it builds that into all of the answers that it gives to you. So if that's something you need, I think that that's a worthwhile investment. If it's not something you need, then you can use the free version. Either way works. We just want you using it.
Exactly. So I would say, like, as an end cap to this conversation, while you're having your Hershey's bar,
Reese's.
and you've been, or you're eating your Reese's, and you're playing your game on Roblox, and you happen to see some ad delivered by Hashku, and then you like get impressed, and you want to go to Walmart.com, and you see an ad that Ad Fury delivered, creative. Get you the free version of Google Gemini and start playing around with it. And that's how you advance and escalate, right? Because these things, that's what I love, is they do transfer over. And it's about diving in, having fun, being curious, checking it out, and watch it help you. Try out Notebook LLM, right? Or Notebook LLMs.
Notebook LLM, yeah.
Sorry. LLMs.
Find a place to start. That's the biggest thing. Right?
And do the free ones. Like you said, like
100%.
I started with the free ones, and within a couple of months, I was like, all of them are eventually going to give you a prompt. Gemini was like, hey, I'll give you Pro for discounted price for 3 months. And I was like, let's give it a try. Personal. I use the Pro version for professional work. So I put it on my personal laptop, and I'm not going back. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's memory. But that's the big thing, is like, you don't need to jump into that right away. You can use the free version and be like, oh, this is pretty cool, and start to just get your feet wet. And then once you've waded into the pool a good bit, you're like, I'm ready to dive in, and you can go into those paid versions, and it just opens your world of possibilities.
And think about the discussion we had around these tools as really magnifiers of human capability. I think that's really important. I think about, back in the day when Photoshop was brand new, like people must have gone through a very similar thing where it might have been weird, but all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, can you imagine a creative agency right now without using Photoshop-like tools and capabilities? Same thing's going to happen here. This is a magnifier of human capability.
It just happens. It just happens so often, and by so many. There's just so many folks developing these things. Like the amount of tools that come out are ridiculous, and I just think that that's part of this overwhelming thing. Like when you had to your analogy, you're correct, but you didn't have 30 other Photoshops hitting all at the exact same time. It's like, which one do I choose?
Right.
So, but to your point, like you just got to start diving in, and you can always choose a different one.
And it's the best time to do it because there's so many tools, honestly.
Yeah.
Like overwhelm yourself a little bit right now, learn it all, because it's honestly going to get a little bit more streamlined. It's only going to get easier. As AI continues to get more integrated with everything, it becomes just a natural part of everyday life, like the internet is today. I equate this a lot to when the internet first started getting really popular, because there are so many people who are like, I use it here and there, I don't really touch it. Now it's an integral part of your life. You often don't have mail in your mailbox because email has replaced most traditional mail. And that's just what's going to happen with AI as well. And so you're going to see a rapid change in the amount of companies that exist. Some will really succeed, others will not. And that's going to allow you to have a very streamlined idea of which tools you want to use, and allow you to have much more understanding of the tool sets that exist, because you have already tested them all historically, and you know the different tools that used to exist and why this particular tool that still is in its evolved state is the best in class.
Perfect. Erica, you're going to say something?
Oh, I was just thinking about start with something that you don't want to do. So I just got tasked with taking inventory in these rentals because the state now requires me to literally line list every item. And I was like, that's going to take days. So I was like, how can I think smart about this? So I went and took pictures, and I uploaded 10 pictures into Gemini, and I said, create me an inventory list and value what these pieces are.
Wow.
You guys, minutes. That would have taken me days to do that. And so it's really like, think big, because it is big, and what it can do is transformative. And so if you try to do something that you don't think is possible, you're not always going to be met with success, but like play around with it and just keep spending time figuring out what it can do and what it can do well. And then always check your work, just like we had to do in school. You need to check your problems to make sure you got the right answer, because there are still gaps, right? Like, let's be clear, they're still models, they're still learning, there's still limitations, but it's a great way to start of what is really bearing you down. And some of it is like a thought starter. I am just in that I can't think about how to start this presentation. So have it, give you some thought starters to get over that white blank page feeling. It's just great for that. And then you can grow from it, because we still need humans in the loop. We still need us to provide the strategic perspective, but it is a great way to get going.
It's almost like we finally got an answer for writer's block.
Yes.
100%. Yeah, right? I mean, I think that's a good analogy. Jessica, final words for brands, encouragements, last thoughts. What do you have? Anything?
Don't be afraid of AI. Actually dig deep, find out how you can use it. Again, like you said, white space. Even when you know what your problem is, but you don't know if AI can do it, you can prompt it and it will tell you, this is what I can do for you when you didn't even have that idea, right? So again, very useful tools. Something that I really enjoyed today that was said, and then from my seat, I could see the audience, which were very smart leaders, was that they said, when it was mentioned, AI is wrong sometimes, and their face was, what? And people do take it at the face value, but I think that is going to trigger to many people to prompt and ask and push back. Where did you get this? What are your sources? You can ask AI what your sources are.
Right.
And if it says Wikipedia, that's probably a red flag. And I've seen it. My children have shown me. And I said, I don't think that's going to work. Anyway, push back, learn, be curious, and then, just leverage it for growth.
Love it. Hey, thank y'all so much for time at the live event, for coming here and doing this. Extremely important for our community. Great for brands. Great for us. I've really enjoyed it. I had a good time.
So I loved it.
Excellent. Yeah. So
I get to geek out over this stuff.
I know.
Always be here.
I'm like I'm with you, bro. I'll show up. I'll come here. I mean, like, I'm really having a hard time to control the time. I'm like getting myself in trouble, but not enough time in the day to talk about it. But it was really fun. Thank you so much, and thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to the e-newsletter. It's free. The only reason is that you can stay involved with all the events that we have going on, like the one we had this morning, more shows that we're doing. We got a lot more planned out in the future. We got workshops coming down. We got hackathons that we talked about doing. A lot of cool stuff, live podcasts, all kinds of stuff right here in Northwest Arkansas for doing business in Bentonville. And thank you very much and have a fantastic day.